Okay.
And Trevor, this is Jennifer Hakenin. Did you see my email? Aaron might not join until a few minutes late.
Yeah, although he did talk a minute ago, so maybe he's
Oh,
back.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, I believe we have a quorum. So I'd like to begin the meeting. Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled January 19th, 2022 meeting of the Trinidad Planning Commission. Let me just read very quickly a paragraph regarding the video conferencing. In accordance with Executive Order N-29-20, this meeting will be held via video conference and will be hosted on the Zoom platform. Public comment may be submitted via email in advance of the meeting or in an orderly process during the conference orally or via email or Zoom chat. Your comments will be included in the public record for the meeting and will be accepted at any time during the meeting. You can email comments before the meeting, kind of overcome by events, or you can deliver handwritten comments, overcome by events, on the day of the meeting. And obviously, if you are on Zoom, you know how to participate via video conference. With that said, first item on our agenda is a roll call.
Well, as you know, we are short one commissioner at this time. So anybody who's on the meeting, if you would like an opportunity to volunteer to serve the city, or if you know anybody or can coerce anyone into serving on the Planning Commission, that would be great. The City Council also has a vacancy. So, just throwing that out there. So we looks like we have our full complement of 4 commissioners, but I will go ahead and do a roll call. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Stockness.
Present.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
And Commissioner Hakenin.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes from December 15th, 2021. There are any comments, questions, clarifications of the minutes? Okay, I don't see any. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Been approved. Second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? Okay, just for clarification, Trevor, do we need a roll call for this?
I think if everyone says aye, that would be fine.
Okay, so it's been moved in second, and so therefore by affirmation, minutes are approved. Any objections? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Any questions, comments, considerations on the approval of the agenda? Commissioner Stockness.
So I would like to move the Trinidad school on the agenda up above the number 2. I'd like to switch places with 2 and 3.
Let's see, I'm looking at the list of attendees here, and I do see Mr. Hone. And I guess I'll ask Mr. Hone if there's a problem with that.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
The school one might take a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was,
That may be problematic because I have another meeting I have to jump into. I'm Mr. Hohn's project manager, Chris Johnson, and so I would like to be present if possible.
Oh, if that's a situation, I would definitely like Chris to be present as well.
It's okay. I just thought that it would be a while with the Trinidad school one. I mean, we can stay with the agenda, Richard. We can, it was just an idea.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But it sounds like maybe the best thing is to stick with the agenda as it's configured right now.
Okay,
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Approve.
second,
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor by affirmation?
aye.
Agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is items from the floor. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the Planning Commission on items which are not on the agenda this evening. And I would urge you that if you would like to speak, feel free to do so, but please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any items from the floor? Okay, I'm scanning. I do not, wait, okay. Is there someone trying to call in for item from the floor? Okay, I see someone lit up, but I don't.
Richard,
know.
I believe that 805 number is Hohn's applicant's project designer, I believe.
Okay, great, thank you.
No, it's not me. Sorry. I'm Chris and Kelsey. That's what I'm registered under.
Okay, at this point, I don't see any public comment, or anyone for public comment. So we'll move on to our agenda items. The first item on our agenda is election of a new chair, vice chair, discussion decision on the election of a new planning commission chair to replace Commissioner Kelly. Vice chair may also be considered. And I think I saw, yes, ex-Commissioner Kelly is here. So maybe she wants to join us again. Doubtful. Trevor, status report.
Sure, yeah. So at this point, my recommendation would be to continue this. Richard, you're currently the vice chair. You can continue to be the chair if the commission is comfortable with that. Apparently staff dropped the ball on this last year. It was when we were discussing water issues and there was a lot going on. The Planning Commission did recommend to the City Council to change this language that limits election of a chair and vice chair to someone who hasn't served yet before. And the reason that's become an issue is we've had a lot of turnover on the Planning Commission. And so sometimes that has given the Planning Commission really no choice but to elect, a brand new commissioner who might not be comfortable with that position. You guys can certainly discuss if that's the case at this point. And we took that to the City Council, who did direct staff to go ahead and prepare that amendment. And that never got done. And so, pending that, and also pending the possibility of hopefully having a fifth planning commissioner soon, you might want to consider just continuing that for now. But that's just a suggestion. You could certainly vote on a new chair and vice chair tonight.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Any comments, considerations from the commission on the recommendation from Trevor, or anything else that you would like to bring up?
No, I think that's a good idea to defer it.
Yeah, I do too.
Commissioner Stockness?
Unmute. So this is my feeling. I won't be here at the March meeting. I will be out of town. And I would like to nominate Richard for chairman. And then we could maybe do the vice chair in February. That's my feeling with what's been going on and the absence of one commissioner. So I'm going to throw that out for the commission to talk about, the commissioners.
Well, thanks. I appreciate your vote of confidence. I would, though, like to just postpone this, just as recommended by staff, only because there is a consideration of, I believe my term is up this year. And so I want to make sure that we have as much continuity as possible. And I also think that we should make certain that we get the fifth commissioner in place. So personally, from my standpoint, I have no problem of serving as vice chair for the time being until we can make an election of both the chair and vice chair.
Okay, so my term is up this year too.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Okay. So I'm just putting it out there for experience and what we have on our plate, especially with the general plan. And I don't know, I just feel that way. And I'm fine with, any of the other two being vice chair. I think that would be great. I'm just going to throw it out there now because I don't know what'll happen in February. And February and March are 2 vacation weeks. One's the President's Week. Maybe it isn't the President's Week. And then in March, it's spring break. So I don't know who's involved or families, but I know I won't be around in March.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know. Thank you. Any further comments? While I don't believe that, this is an issue that's somewhat internal to the commission, I will ask, though, for public comment, if there is any public comment. Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the commission. And so I think the agreement, Trevor, is that we'll continue as you have recommended and work real hard to get that fifth person on board. And we will take a look at this again next month and see where we are. Okay, I just had one comment, and that is, Trevor, is it possible? Well, I would like to make sure that next month we actually see the language of the proposed ordinance. I don't think it was in the package this month.
Yeah, absolutely. I have not prepared formal language yet, but I will plan on having that on the February council agenda, and I will report that to you at the February meeting, if
Great.
that works.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda, moving along, is item number 2, Home 2021-09, Design Review and Coastal Development Permit to construct 125 square foot addition to the existing kitchen and a new 765 square foot wraparound deck on the main floor of an existing 2,677 square foot 3-bedroom, 3-story single family residence. Mouthful. Trevor, could we get a staff report, please?
Sure, absolutely. So this is a fairly straightforward project for Trinidad. So the kitchen addition is sort of filling in a corner of the house that's not square and just sort of squaring it off. And then it's a large deck addition on the second story, which, because it's visible from the street and other properties, all of that requires design review. It's altering the external profile of the structure. I did send out referrals to city staff as well as tribal entities for this project because it involves ground disturbance. The only comments I got back was from the city engineer, who had a couple of comments about the site plan showing the utilities, which has been included as a condition of approval for the building permits. I do have a file from this project with past site plans that do show the utilities, so that shouldn't be an issue. And I have verified that the additions don't affect anything. The leach field is located further west from the deck, from the proposed deck. So the project is in an area that's zoned urban residential. It's on a fairly large lot. Urban residential is intended for fairly dense single family residential development. The table 1 shows the project square footages. The project won't change the setbacks. It won't change the height of the structure. It won't affect parking or change the parking requirements. So all of those requirements are met. One of the issues is to consider is the size of the house. So there's a design review finding that structures over 2,000 square feet will be considered out of scale with the community unless they're sited and designed in such a way that they're not obtrusive. Obviously, the house is already above 2,000 square feet, and this is adding another 125 square feet to the floor area of the house. However, it's not really changing the profile of the structure. In addition, the Planning Commission also uses a guideline of a 25% floor area to lot area ratio. And that's based on a 2,000 square foot house on a 8,000 square foot lot, so that on smaller lots, something smaller might be appropriate. On larger lots, something larger might be appropriate. And so this is still at 22% of the residential floor area to the lot area, so it is below that guideline. Another issue to consider for this project is the public access. So the project is located between the sea and the first public road, so we have to look at public access. There is an existing public access from Underwood that accesses the state park trails, 2 properties north of this, and this project won't affect any existing access, so no new access is required. Minimal grading, no changes to utilities are proposed. Materials will match and colors will match the existing residence. Another consideration here is views, as is always the case with new development in Trinidad. I thought this project would have sort of a minimal potential to impact views, but I do understand that there was a neighbor at two houses to the north that had some concerns. Therefore, I asked the contractor to put up story poles and so that the neighbors could understand better how their view might be impacted by the deck. It's the 2nd story deck, and it would be their view to the south that would be impacted. And so if they feel that their view is going to be impacted after those story poles, then hopefully they're here at the meeting and can speak to that. But that will be one of the considerations for your design review findings. The project is not in an area where there's any geologic concerns, and it will not affect the existing septic system. The design review and view protection findings have been written in a manner to allow approval as usual, but if any evidence is submitted at the meeting, such as if views will be blocked, then those criteria should be reworded accordingly as needed. So staff recommendation at this point is that the project can be found to be consistent with the city's ordinances and general plan and coastal act and other applicable regulations, and is recommending approval. Planning Commission does have some options if any issues are raised during the hearing for adding conditions of approval to address any specific concerns, delaying action and continuing the hearing to obtain further information, or denial of the project if one or more of the findings cannot be made. Conditions of approval also pretty standard. Construction activities will protect the leach field, incorporate stormwater control and erosion control. The conditions of the building inspector will be required to be met. A time limit of a year on the project approval, and then reimbursement to the city for all costs of processing the permit. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or clarifications from the commissioners?
And I scored the teacher's nicotine gum. She got that so she doesn't smell like cigarettes, you know. Yeah, she should also get some booze gum.
Thanks. Wasn't sure what that was. Commissioner Stockness.
Okay, so my first question is the septic. The septic was 1986, and we're getting all the OWTSs up and current. So it says the permit expires in June of 2022. So maybe that is in the construction plan to when they do the construction, remodeling, et cetera, they're going to put in a new septic.
No, the septic system is, at least the last time it was inspected, was operating just fine. It meets current requirements for the size of the residence. It has been operated as a vacation rental for quite a few years before it was recently or purchased last year by the current owners and the applicants. So it's just the OWTS operating permit that expires, which only requires the system to be inspected. I wouldn't expect that it would need any upgrades at this time.
Okay, so maybe inspected before the big construction. I mean, this is going to be a lot of construction at this spot, you know, in and out. Okay, so my other comment is, okay, what did I do with that? Out in front, all those flags and the colored paint, that's stormwater, right, Trevor? That's the stormwater markings?
No, that's a recent survey that was done by the neighbor.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a bunch of flags all over town. They are orange. And then, are you sure, Trevor, that's not part of the stormwater project? Because Underwood is ready for stormwater drains.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know that I have seen the flags around town, although I did not drive down Underwood recently. And yes, those are all, it's probably flagging for construction areas, but it's also probably the 811. You know, they come and they paint the utilities prior to construction. So there's probably some of that. And so it's possible that it's a mixture in front of this house. I can't remember exactly where the stormwater.
Okay, so can the building inspector check that out? Because it says curb in two different places, kind of by their PG&E pole.
Yeah, so that will be something that the building inspector will look at. I'll make sure he's aware that construction won't affect any of the stormwater work. But the project shouldn't affect any utilities or the stormwater work. It might be a matter of, you know, where they park their trucks if the stormwater work is going on at the same time.
Yeah, I just didn't know, you know, what all that was. And then by the PG&E pole, there are two plants. One is a big tree, not real big, but big, medium-sized tree with lots of branches. And it is to the left, to the right of the PG&E pole. And then a rhodey plant is kind of circling the PG&E pole. And then behind those guys are there hedges and the fence that goes down the south part of the property. So I just wanted to point that out, that perhaps the tree needs to be pruned back, because, you know, we're trying to be 10 feet away from utility poles, you know, for wind and power outages. And anyway, I just want them to be aware that those two trees, especially the medium-sized one, bothered me. Okay.
I'm more than happy to clean those up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm kind of the vegetation monster on the Planning Commission. Okay, so did they have to have a permit to gut the house? Because
They would have needed building permits. And so that would have gone through Ross.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I did go and look at the story poles and check out how high they were going to be, where they were going to be, looked at the backyard, looked to the north at the neighbors. And so I checked it out. You know, I think it'll be exciting that it'll be all, you know, finished, and it'll be a new spot. So the deck, if I could talk to the construction guy, the deck on the west side will be how long?
So the deck on the west side will be the length of the existing house, and it'll go out 10 feet, which is where that story pole is that you
Okay.
see. So it'll carry down and it'll wrap around the south corner of the house and drive out 10 feet and end at the right around the existing corner of the house where it is now.
Okay, and how big is that area right there by the south? And is that where the kitchen's going to be extended, or is that the front room?
Yes. So the kitchen's currently on the south side of the house, and there's a door that goes out onto a deck. We're essentially just claiming that deck is square footage and expanding the kitchen over to the edge of that.
Okay, so the deck on the south side will be how far out from the actual house?
The plans show that it'll be 10 feet.
10 feet out from there too? So is it
Yeah.
going to run right into the fence?
No,
That runs down the south side?
no, it'll still be back from the fence quite a bit.
Okay,
Yeah, it's like, you know, the property line kind of, it's not straight on the south side, so it's kind of obtuse. And so at the very southeast corner of the deck, it'll be the closest to that fence, which will still be, you know, probably 8 or 9 feet from my approximate measurements, if that fence line is the property line. And then the deck will obviously just go straight down the house, so the property line jives to the south there, so the distance will increase. The distance from the deck to the property line will increase as it goes west, if that makes sense, if you can picture that.
yeah, I can picture it. And then in the front, are you going to change the front, take all the hedges out, make a different garage, or what?
We're not making it. I mean, we'll change the garage door, and the front is the front porch is going to change a little bit, because what's currently there is pretty subpar, is for lots of reasons. That the house has some inherent issues, because they built it without eaves. And so when you
Oh.
build it without eaves, you already have issues. And the porch that's there, if you look at it, it's just kind of like cockeyed and crooked. We're going to raise it up so it has, head level underneath, come out about the same distance. Our plans were to definitely probably get rid of some of those hedges that were there. I know, Mr. Hone hasn't completely decided on all those little details of exactly how he wants the front design. You know how it is when you have a big project and, the vision will develop. But yeah, I believe we probably will delete in time the hedges, that
For
kind
a
of.
more open
Yeah,
way
let
to
me-
get into the house. Okay.
And
Okay.
Mr. Hone might want to make a comment on that.
What?
Yeah, let me jump in. I can
Oh.
tell you that I will clear out those hedges and it is going to be much more open. That's going to be a secondary project to getting the house finished. But eventually those hedges, they will be cleared, and they're definitely going to be a much more open, I guess I would call it a floor plan, even though it's outside, it's going to be much more open than it is currently.
Okay, so I think the thing I'm most concerned about besides those trees is the size of the deck and the neighbors. I didn't hear from anybody, but I don't know, Trevor, if anybody's here tonight. But thank you for explaining, Mr. Hone and Johnson, because I think it's going to be a great project, and I know it's weathered with the salt. I've lived up here for 46 years, so I get it. My son says when he sits at the table outside, he wants to know if I've had a tetanus shot because of all the rust. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions for staff or the agent and owner? Trevor, I actually had just one question for you. On page 3 of the report, under the approximate areas table 1, I just wanted to clarify the line that says footprint of all impervious areas, and the existing is 2925 square feet, and the proposed is 3,050 square feet. Can you explain why that only went up 75 square feet? I couldn't get that figured out just based on the columns, the previous rows there.
That's a good question. I know I updated the numbers at one point, and maybe I didn't follow through with my updates. Because it's not the deck that's being replaced is wouldn't be considered pervious because water can go through it. So really it should be, I think it should be 125 foot difference. So I must have added something there.
Okay, I think that was probably the case. I just wanted to clarify, or if I was just missing something. Okay. Any other comments from other commissioners? Okay, what I would like to do is just ask the homeowner and the agent if there's anything else that you would like to add or clarify before we open it up for public comment.
Well, all I would like to add is just that I'm excited for the project and to be a part of a Trinidad community in the future.
Thank you. Chris, Mr. Johnson?
No, I guess like to say that we're, obviously when somebody, I've been here my whole life, been through a lot of projects, and, we are obviously vested in the community. My client already paid $1.3 million for the house. We have a lot of time and energy into trying to improve the house. And, we're definitely willing to work with people in any reasonable, ask, and, we want to be good neighbors throughout the project, with the construction, and just the overall finished product. And so, I think it's overall going to be an improvement in many ways, going from a vacation rental in a neighborhood that's mainly all homeowners to another homeowner who is going to be a great part of the community. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, I'll open it up for public comment. I would just remind everyone that we would like to keep your comments to a total of 3 minutes. And I've asked Anton to time us, but feel free, if you would like to speak, by all means, feel free to speak. So any comments from the public at this point?
This is Jack Tuttle and Heather Lovick. We're the neighbors to the north, and we met Brian on the first day he bought the house and talked to Chris, and they gave us the details of the project early on. So we appreciate all the info they gave us early on, and we support their decision.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, Richard, this is Dick Bruce, and we live across the street, and we have no problem with the project whatsoever. We're looking forward to having new neighbors across the street, no longer being a vacation rental family across the street. It's going to be great, and we're very supportive of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Add on.
Anyone else? I'm scanning. I don't see any other hands raised. All right, so with that, I will bring it back to the commission. Any further discussion from the commission? Yes, Aaron.
I just had one question, and Trevor, maybe you can speak to this, but as far as timing, and maybe the applicant can as well, just, in case of a conflict between the stormwater project, which is that, how time sensitive is that for the city? Do we have any grant funds at risk if something were to get delayed? If there were a conflict, and I don't anticipate there would be, because it sounds like they're really willing to work with everybody and super excited about that. But is it really something to be worried about, or not really?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I would request that the applicant, try and get an idea of the schedule of that stormwater project. I mean, that's about to start, I believe, at any time, if it hasn't already. And so that might be done by the time the applicant's ready to construct. But for their own benefit, it would probably be good to, make sure they coordinate, because if there's stormwater work going on right there, obviously it would interfere with construction vehicles and getting the equipment back there.
Yeah, and doing the work on my house is just, once you get somebody scheduled, to change it can be challenging at best. So just want to make sure both sides are talking. That's all.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for putting up the story polls. That helped me out and to see what was going on. And I was maybe for another discussion, another time, Trevor, how do we get story polls up on every job that's going to affect the neighbors? But this looks like a good job. Thanks. That's all I have to say.
Okay, actually, that's a good question, Tom. And Trevor, maybe we could take that as an action just to clarify what the policy is on story polls. I know that typically we just request them. That's my understanding. But whether or not it's a requirement, I don't believe it is. But it might be nice just to clarify that for the commission and the public as well, so that we all understand when and if story polls go up. Yeah, definitely. Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Okay, hearing none, we are at the point where if a commissioner would like to make a motion.
I'll go ahead. Based on the application materials and information included in this staff report, based on public testimony, I move to adopt the information, required design review, view protection, and other findings in this staff report and approve the project as submitted in the application and described in the staff report and as conditioned therein.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. And again, all in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. By affirmation, passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Hone. Appreciate your help.
Thank you,
and
guys.
input.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Okay, next item on our agenda is Trinidad Union School District Design Review and Coastal Development Permit to replace the existing school marquee sign with a new 32 square foot programmable digital sign north of the existing sign, but still mounted on the same building wall. The sign can and will be programmed to control brightness and will generally be off at night. Trevor, can we have a staff report, please?
Sure, absolutely. So obviously there's a fair amount of public interest in this project. It was kind of an interesting project to review. Trinidad's ordinances being written in the 70s really don't address digital signs. And I will say that, my first reaction to the application was, whoa, that doesn't seem appropriate for Trinidad. But in talking with the applicant, my understanding is it's basically going to be like, it will be the existing marquee for the most part, just digital. And so I think Elise does have some additional information and a presentation that hopefully will alleviate some of the concerns. And then I think in looking at the my own thoughts and then the public comments that have come in, I do think that there are some additional conditions of approval the Planning Commission could consider. We are, some of the issues. Well, I guess I'll just go through my staff report. So I did provide a little bit of information on what a knit is and how knits are measured. That wasn't something I was particularly familiar with, so that was kind of interesting. I still don't totally have my head wrapped around it. And I think, one of the problems, it's hard to visualize, how bright it's going to be and what it's going to look like. Even, there's a photo mock-up in the application materials, but it doesn't really give a sense of what it's going to look like. There are a number of schools, seems like most schools have some sort of digital signs, but there are a couple of schools that have these same digital signs. And then also just pointing out, this is the permitting oversight of this project is also a little bit, can be a little confusing. Normally, state property is not subject to local regulations. This is a little bit different because we're in the coastal zone and the city's ordinances have been certified to carry out the State Coastal Act. And so the school is subject to coastal development permits from the city, issuing but from the city. And the city, the city doesn't have a separate process for coastal development permits and design review. Design review is basically that process. The project is not exempt under the city's design review criteria. I wasn't sure if it might be exempt under the Coastal Commission's exemptions. I did talk to Tamara, our local Coastal Commission staff person, a little bit. She thinks it probably would be a coastal development permit because it's intensifying the light and potentially the use. But she did think it probably is not appealable. I have it marked as appealable because one of the maps we have in our LCP does show it to be so. So that's a question that's up in the air right now. There's a potential conflict of interest. Commissioner Heikkinen owns property that's 485 feet away from the project. And under the state conflict of interest code, there's a presumed conflict if you own property within 500 feet of a project. For small communities, that number can be reduced to 300 feet if certain conditions are met, which in this case they are. So there is no presumed conflict of interest, and you can reference the then city attorney's memo to see more information about that. So the sign is going to be located in the PR zone, the public and religious zone. The school property is kind of oddly zoned. The school portions of the schoolyard are zoned open space, and most of where the buildings are zoned public and religious. We have had some issues with that open space zoning because it doesn't really allow, traditional development that you would consider for schools, even the track and the playground equipment. But the sign will be in the PR zone, so the open space zoning isn't an issue. The sign is going to be replacing the existing marquee, which is the same size, so 32 square feet. It's just going to be moved over more towards the center of the building, so it's not blocked by the cherry tree. So the location is changing, but the size will be the same. So signs. So in the PR zone, the regulations allow an identifying sign or bulletin board for a church, school, or other public or religious use, which may be indirectly lighted, not exceeding 32 square feet in area and not less than 10 feet from any property line. So that is, and indirectly lighted is not defined in the ordinance. Traditionally, that has meant internally lit signs, but the definitions do vary, so I'm not sure that's clear. And again, these regulations were written before there was any such a thing as digital signs. So I think that, and really this sign is going to be operated during the daytime, so illumination isn't so much of an issue for this sign. So I think it can be found to be consistent with that requirement, but that's something that the Planning Commission should consider. The city doesn't have any lighting standards currently, which is obviously an issue with this project. Generally, the Coastal Commission requires lighting to be night sky friendly, shielded, pointed downwards, but this isn't really that kind of traditional lighting. One thing that the condition that the Planning Commission can consider is the hours of operation. So the school is proposing 7:30 to 7:30. It could be something more like dawn to dusk, unless there's a special event going on, maybe a basketball game at night, you have the sign on still, but dawn to dusk might make more sense, alleviate some of the concerns about, affecting the night sky. My understanding is that the sign can be programmed to, come off and on at specific times, or even have a light meter that it will adjust itself automatically. So on foggy days, it's duller, not as bright, and on sunny days, it's brighter. So the sign is completely programmable. So it can be, it can have as little or as much information as the school wants to put on it. And, there can be some limitations on, the type of graphics that can go on it. There can be some limitations on, some concerns about it being a distraction or flashing or moving. And so, there could be some limitations on how many messages per day or per hour go on it, something like that. So those are things the Planning Commission can think about. The other issue that has come up is precedence. And I think that is something to consider. But I think a public use is very different from a commercial use. But the Planning Commission might want to word its findings and its decisions so that if they approve this project, that it doesn't set a precedence for anybody to have a billboard, which this is not going to be. But community compatibility, obviously an issue, and that's part of the design review and the view protection findings, which are somewhat subjective. This is something we've talked about before. We actually, our design element, community design element is later on this agenda that we'll be discussing, and we're discussing guidelines for signs. I don't see anything in those guidelines that would prevent this sign. So I don't think this sign is going to, affect our LCP update and what we're doing with that, but that's something to think about. So, and then in terms of, setbacks, heights, things like that, septic, slope stability, the project doesn't require any grading. It's not affecting setbacks or parking or height or things like that. It does require design review, as I explained before, and the findings have been written in a manner to allow approval. But there's going to be some additional information has been submitted in writing. You have gotten, hopefully you've gotten those letters. They're available on the city's website, and then also the public comment period from today. So, at this point, staff recommendation is for approval, but I do think the Planning Commission certainly should consider some additional conditions. Another one I was thinking about is some sort of adaptive management. So if there's, still concerns about, how bright it's going to be, how it's going to look, how it's going to affect aesthetics. It might be difficult to come up with some wording, but it could be sort of like an operations plan that the school needs to come up with and work on over the next couple of months with the community, trying different brightnesses, different programs, how that's going to work, and then come back for approval of that operations plan in a few months. That might be one way to, since we can't see the sign in place, that might be one way to address potential concerns, because I don't know about limiting the brightness without knowing how bright it's going to look on a bright sunny day. So I don't know what that number should be, but once they get the sign, that might be something that they can work on and come back to the Planning Commission. So and then you also obviously have, so there's the motion for approval, but you also have the options as usual to add conditions of approval. Like I've mentioned, you could continue the project and request additional information. Or if you feel one or more of the findings can't be made, then you can deny the project. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Let's see. Before we get into questions or comments from the commissioners, I guess, Ms. Nichols, you're the point of contact for this project, and I'm sorry I haven't met you. Nice to meet you finally.
Meet you.
So I think if there's any questions, feel free to jump in and help us understand exactly what's going on here, as well as Trevor, if there's anything that you need to help us understand. So with that said, I'll open it up for questions, comments from the commissioners. Diane?
So I need to reveal that I did call Ms. Nichols yesterday and asked her a couple of questions about the sign. And one of the questions that I asked her was, are they going to prune the tree? And Trevor calls it a cherry tree. I don't know if that's the name of the tree, but I want to tell you and everybody in the community that I've been trying to get that tree pruned for over 5 years. And we almost had it. And then Patrick Cunningham left, and then I tried to get somebody else with him to do it, and they were going to do it. And then the pandemic came. Because my whole thing right now, my first comment will be that that tree needs to be pruned way down so that we as community members can see what the sign's going to say, whether it's the marquee, a new sign, because we couldn't see it. And you can't really see it much now because of the tree. Okay, that's my first comment.
Other comments, questions?
Oh, yeah, I'll go. So I wanted to let everybody know that I spoke to Jeff, who was the owner, and got some information from him about the sign and about what his capabilities are. He's very open to doing whatever to make it a very creative sign, however we want it. I was kind of curious about how bright it was and its location right there next to a crosswalk where kids are going to be crossing. And there's a big sign trying to get people to look at the sign instead of the crosswalk. So that was my big concern. And I actually kind of liked what sign at the turn would be a better place for a sign, and it would help slow people down maybe a little bit, as opposed to.
Tom, could I interrupt just for a second? You broke up on two very important pieces of information. The first one was you said you spoke to someone. Could you repeat who that is? And then the second one is that you started to say something about, I think, moving the location of the sign. I apologize, but you broke up, and I think it's important that we understand exactly what you're saying.
Oh, thanks. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, I'm having problems with my sound. I spoke to Jeff, one of the owners at All Points Signs.
Oh, okay.
Very creative to doing whatever to make it look really great. And but the biggest thing that I see is its location next to a crosswalk. If one person looks at the sign instead of looking at a kid, it could be a problem. And the crosswalk is, there's signs for the crosswalk. I think a better location is a freestanding sign at the corner, something that looks classy, like what Mr. I think Cox suggested as an option. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I'm worried about the colors and the flashing and the digitals. That's it for right now.
Okay, thank you. Aaron?
Nothing right now, other than I too dove into the conflict of interest stuff, and I'm comfortable that all the guidelines are met to bring it down to 300 feet.
Okay. Yeah, I have a number of questions and comments. First of all, I for the existing sign, is that lit in any way currently?
It's currently not lit. There is a light on top of the gym, but that light does not work right now.
So that would be one of my one of the concerns I would have is that I saw the floodlight above the sign, and the new proposed location for the sign would put it directly below that floodlight. And it would seem to me that we would just be fighting each other in terms of the intensity of light of the floodlight versus the sign. So is it your intent then that the floodlight is going to go away or not be used?
Correct. We wouldn't be using the floodlight anymore.
Okay. I noticed in the Photoshop picture that you presented that the colors are blue on a white background, and then at the bottom is a white and yellow on a black background. I'm assuming that because this is a digital sign, you can pretty much put any colors that you want on it. I guess what I'm trying to get at is what is your thoughts on the number of colors, or what is going to be the predominant color scheme that the public could anticipate seeing?
I think the predominant, we would definitely work with the public to figure out what's easiest to read. I don't think we're going to have a lot of high color graphics on there. It's going to be mostly just, basic text. So it might be red and black, which is what Eureka High currently uses. Oric uses kind of a gold and black color. The red and black seems to be pretty easily seen by the public, but not very obtrusive.
Thank you. In your letter to, I guess it was to the PC staff on December 17th, you said something in there that the district is investigating digital/LED sign options. I'm trying to understand what that means. Are you still investigating other options or alternatives to this proposal?
No, this is currently what we're proposing.
Okay. Have you seen the new sign at the Rancheria Casino?
I have not driven past it yet.
Okay, I was just curious from your standpoint, if your sign, the proposed sign, is similar that we could use as a local reference to get an idea of the shape and size and intensity of the sign.
Jeff is on here from All Point Signs, and I believe he designed that sign. He might give us some comparisons and contrasts between those.
I can speak to that. So the digital aspect of the casino sign and their proposed sign are the same components. They have the same capabilities. The casino sign is much larger. I think it is a 5 foot by 10 foot versus this 4 foot by 8 foot. But they are essentially the same sign as far as what they can do. I wouldn't use the comparison of what the casino will be running on it compared to what the school will be running on it. Like Elise said, she's planning on running it more like a monochrome where it's a black background, red letters. Basically just in essence, replacing that marquee, it's just going to be words on it. Everything that's on the upper part, all the rest of Cherry Heights Casino sign is, it's a casino. It's intended to be flashy and bright. Their sign won't have any of that stuff at all.
Yeah, I was more concerned with the ability to kind of assess the intensity of the light, the nits, if you will. Yeah. And trying to get a comparison. Because my first question would be is why don't we do a mock-up? But a mock-up, the only thing the mock-up that I see would be to show size and shape and location. Really wouldn't help us trying to understand what the impact would be on night sky, for example, or just the general intensity of the light. But okay, I appreciate understanding a little bit more about the design, the light design.
Yeah, well, I can speak to the intensity of light too. It will be vastly less light coming off than that floodlight that is above it. So although the floodlight's not working right now, from what was there to what will be there will affect your ability to see the night sky and all that much less, because a floodlight is literally designed to be as bright as possible to light up an area, where this sign is only designed to light itself. It's not designed to light the surrounding area. And right on the corner there at the crosswalk, there's another street light, which again will be putting off much more ambient light than this sign will be. And I mean, it kind of seems like the intent is to not even run it at night. I suggested to Elisa that she does run time and temperature on it which is a black background, red letters, and pretty much, nominal ambient light coming off.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just have one other question for this particular point in the discussion, and I'm just curious from your standpoint, Ms. Nichols, what do you think the reaction, or what do you think the students and the teachers and the school board and others feel about your proposal?
So this was actually part of our board discussion each summer is proposed maintenance and upgrade for the campus. And so this came from a board discussion on how the board wishes to proceed with modernization and accessibility of the campus. This was one of the proposals that we decided to act on this year. I had some parents at the board meeting who were very supportive. And I actually have John Adams, who's our student member on the site council of Trinidad School, here to speak with me about student reactions to the sign.
I thought that might be a student. Hi, John.
Hi.
And so whenever you're ready, we have a little bit of, we took into consideration public comment, and we made a little presentation to answer some questions and allay some fears. So if you would like us to present, we're happy to do that.
I think we're probably at a point where that would be appropriate. So go ahead.
All right. May I share my screen? Let's see. I think we want to go here. And all right. Let me get it into presentation. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to thank you. And for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Elise Nichols. I'm the new superintendent here. This is my second year at Trinidad School. I've been in education for about 20 years. I've lived in Humboldt pretty much consistently since 1989. So I do consider myself a Humboldt resident, and I understand all the concerns that you have about Trinidad, because every month that I'm here in Trinidad, I am just more and more amazed by the community and by the support it has for the school. So it's been a wonderful experience to be part of Trinidad, and I thank you for allowing us to be here. So like I said, we're working to design the digital marquee for our campus. We believe that updating our sign and the way we communicate with families is critical to alerting the school families and the community as a whole of events, deadlines, and important school information. And our goal is to remove the old marquee, which is currently kind of in disrepair. It's falling apart. It's very difficult to update. And so we'd like to install a digital marquee, which would be centered on the outer wall of our gymnasium. So we are not looking for a bright billboard. I can't stress that enough. There's a misconception, I feel, that's when we said the digital marquee, that we were looking for something like Bear River or Las Vegas. That is definitely not where we want to go as a school. We do want to install a marquee, but our sign is not meant to take away from the atmosphere of Trinidad. It's not meant to distract drivers. We're not going to have things that are flashing or moving across the screen, especially at times where students would be getting picked up. We won't be doing any advertising for businesses for profit. We would like to work with Town Hall to see if there are things, local events like the Clam Beach Run, Winter Craft Nights, Blessing of the Fleet, graduation. Those are kinds of things that we would like to work with Town Hall to publicize to the community. And also, last weekend when we had our tsunami warning, we would have the ability to program our sign so that if there were tourists in town who weren't getting cell phone warnings, our sign could give that warning and help alert tourists to warnings. So it could also be a piece of public safety. We don't want it to resemble a traffic control sign. It's going to be parallel to the road. It won't be brightly illuminated. It won't be flashing. People, when they were looking at our old marquee, would also have to take their eyes off the road to look at it. So hopefully this will create something that's a little clearer for them to look at and have more immediate information. So John would like to, okay.
All right, so yeah, we want just purely informative marquee, and the town support is really central to the school. This is like we said, this is a way to communicate with the community members about upcoming events, not just with those who receive the school's communications. So you're not on the list, but you can still find out if there events or like school board meetings, stuff like that. So while the school does send out digital communications, not all families have access to computers and the internet. So a sign with accurate, up-to-date information will ensure equitable access for all people.
All right. So there's a lot of questions of why we would replace the sign. The tree does need to be pruned, and we are working with landscape companies for a lot of our outside landscape. Those are separate other exciting plans. But our current marquee is in disrepair, and we have to get up on a ladder, adjust it. It can't be updated quickly. So if there's something like, oh, this is happening tomorrow, let's advertise that, and then we'll go back to the month's calendar. We would be able to do that and give much more accurate, up-to-date information as well as long-term information. There was a concern about the electricity draw. Trinidad is on solar, and so this would just be integrated into our existing solar system. It wouldn't have a draw on any new power. So right now, people, when they pass it, they do have to spend extra time peering through tree branches. Even if the tree were a little shorter, that would still be the case. We think that a lot of parents stand on the lawn in front of the sign during pickup. So this would be a really great time to have them see pertinent information. This sign, there was also a concern that we could spend money differently. We do have a facilities fund, and that's part of our budget in the fund, and that money can only be used towards facilities. So we've used it to replace the rusted out playground equipment, to install new flooring in classrooms with chipped and cracked tiles. We've upgraded different facilities around the school. And through, with our COVID relief funding and with generous support from the community, we're continuing to have our 1-to-1 ratio for Chromebooks to students. We fully fund our art class, our music class, our gardening. So we are continuing to provide a rich opportunity for students. This isn't going to take away from student programming. It's money that we have to spend on facilities. And the sign fits within our budget, and we feel it's a needed upgrade to allow accessibility to information for the whole community. There seemed like there was a little misconception about where the sign would be located. People were worried that its light would spill out into State Beach or onto other beaches. So it would be located on the gym wall. One reason that we're doing it on the gym wall is because we have electricity already there. If we did it on that curve coming into the school, we would have to run electricity by it or out to it, which would be an added expense. But the sign won't face any park entrances. If it is illuminated when it's dark out, it's primarily through unoccupied buildings like Town Hall and Beachcomber Cafe, which would be closed at that point. The sign's over 10 feet from the curb, and because its light levels are auto-adjusted via light sensor, and they're able to be turned down as needed if we communicate with Town Hall, it shouldn't have any effect on wildlife in the evenings.
So one of the best things about Humboldt County is that it's not New York City. We can sit on our porches and literally see the Milky Way. I've had visitors who have never seen it, or no, you've never seen it before, and they've seen it for the first time in my backyard. We don't want to compromise this experience, and it's not something we take for granted. And when these first digital billboards started showing up on 101, I mean, it was definitely a shock. That's why I want to be careful about the light levels of our sign, which is not a billboard. So the brightness and operation schedule, it will be controlled via a computer program and can be adjusted. So it has a sensor which can automatically adjust the light levels, which means on a lower We glow up on a cloudy day than on sunny days. And as our days grow shorter in the winter, we no need to adjust the brightness manually. So the light levels can be pretty automatic as far as that sensor goes. And Trinidad School will work with the city to agree on hours of operation. We're proposing 7:30 a.m., 7:30 p.m. I would hear dawn to dusk. That might be a idea as well. We're not looking for, definitely not looking, for highway billboard. We want a sign that's visible and easy to read by our community members. The district plans to be responsive to the town's ambience and its needs.
So we did put a couple examples of local signs. Oryx, you can see, is not in a great state of repair at this point. Pine Hill Elementary has a sign that's roughly the same size that we would be proposing. You can see it by a park bench here for scale. 32 square feet does seem like a very large amount when you say it, but as you look at it, it's really not that big. And like we said, it's the same size as our existing marquee. Eureka High's is much smaller, but I believe theirs does scroll and change as you drive by. So let me get back to there. So that's just, a couple local places that do have them. And then
so I know some people were concerned about the students have been asked about this. I've talked to some of my peers and they're in support of a sign like this because it's going to provide information about school events, holidays, don't come to school Monday, you got the day off. And it could, and then on the weekends, there's actually a lot of students who don't have a watch or anything. And that could be useful as a timekeeping. And it just generally eliminate confusion and make it a lot easier to read because like our marquee has not been updated for a while. And this would provide instant updates.
So we just want to really thank you for taking the time to listen to us and listen to our perspective with an open mind. I want to also express my appreciation for Trevor, who spent so much time talking to me and asking questions, helping clarify what we wanted. I really just can't thank you enough, Trevor, for your support and the time that you gave us. And I would also just like to let the community know that on any issues, I'm always available to talk or ask or answer questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if you have any concerns. Thank you so very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nichols and John. Appreciate you participating tonight. Very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission before I open it to public comment? Diane.
So is the guy from All Point still here?
Jeff, are you? Yes.
I'm still here.
Okay. So Jeff, did you do the Eureka High School sign?
No, that one is long before my time. I think that thing's been there for like 16 years or something like that. Local ones we did Sunny Bray Middle School. We did Toddy Thomas, which is in Fortuna, and Ambrosini Elementary School. And then I call them ship-in. So we've installed a bunch of ones that we didn't manufacture. A couple other schools in Fortuna and 3 or 4 other ones. Sorry, I don't remember all the names. 3 or 4 other ones in Eureka.
So my other question, Jeff, is do you make stand-up marquees? Signs.
What do you mean by stand-up marquees?
Well,
like a sandwich board, like a self-standing one?
Yes, a self-standing one. Alice Burney has a self-standing marquee enclosed in glass, on their front lawn. And so I just wondered if you did stand-up marquees.
Yeah, we can. We can pretty much make any type of sign.
Okay, and so the sign that's up there now, the marquee that's up there now, you can do something like that too?
Yeah.
Like the one that's currently there.
Yeah, with that, it's called a zip track system in it. So basically, with interchangeable letters that you go out and spell it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't made one in about 4 years though. They're not, because basically no one really wants them anymore because they're inconvenient to use.
Okay, well, I drove around quite a few schools. I have a big education background, so I wanted to see what, some of the other schools had. And the Eureka High School one, I worked for Eureka High 5 years after I retired doing their testing. And I didn't like driving by because it scrolls and it moves. And even though the street's wide and is far from the sidewalk, it's distracting. So the sign that you have proposed would be straight. I mean, it would just have, like the picture that Elise showed us, it would just have a big notice and then it would stop, or would it keep moving?
No, it wouldn't scroll at all. The biggest thing with digital signs is having a
computer.
Yeah, well, no, just having a good programmer on it, because
well, that's what I meant. A program.
Yeah, really, like scrolling ones, bright ones, they're not helping anyone. They're not helping the sign industry because they're bothering people with scrolling or being too bright, but they're really not helping the user as well because they're difficult to read. And when these digital signs really want to be as dim as possible, because then they're easier to read.
Okay, well,
it really comes down to the school. Just, you guys have to have faith that they're going to be good stewards of their sign in the community and not have it be a flashing casino sign.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and our intent would be to have the information, we would have the information up, potentially for the day, for the week. So it would not be scrolling as you drive or as you walk by. It would be a consistent piece of information that you would get.
Thank you.
Richard, you're muted, but I did have one question as well.
Thank you.
For Jeff also, so I just want to understand, you did the Rancheria one, correct?
Correct.
And it is installed. I haven't been up there in a while. It is installed and active?
Yeah, it just went live last week.
Okay, in theory, and just an idea, would it be possible to limit the footprint of that, so to speak, to a 32 square foot, the same dimensions as the school, and be able to run simulations, assuming the Rancheria were in agreement, to kind of do a mock-up and a test? Is that something that would be feasible? Because it's a fairly similar, fog and light presentation, just to get a better sense of what it might look like.
Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
There's if you want to look at other examples, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Actually, there is one. We just put a 4x8. So the exact same sign that we're proposing is up at Gallagher's right there by Smo Bridge in Eureka.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. At this point, unless there's any other questions or comments from the commission, I'll open it up for public comment. And I would encourage everyone to speak up, but at the same time, to give everyone the same opportunity, I'm asking that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I've asked Anton to time us all. So with that in mind, we'll open it up for public comment. And the first person I see is Jan West.
Well, thank you and good evening to everyone. I wanted to speak directly to John. Way to go. Thank you for participating in our City Planning Commission, John, and speaking up for your school. We appreciate it. I am the president of the school board.
Thanks, Jan.
And this project is something that I've been hoping we could get going for a number of years. Finally rose to the top of the priorities. The main reason is because the current sign is dated, difficult, and time-consuming to use. So each letter is put on the end of a long pole and put into a little track. So depending on how long the message is, each letter has to be taken down, filed away alphabetically, the new message put out, there may not even be enough letters to compose the message that we want to say on the sign. And so this is why I say it's difficult and time consuming. Our maintenance person is part-time, and he has an intensive schedule of other maintenance projects that he is trying to do. And as a result, this communication piece, as important as it is, sometimes has to go by the wayside because of the difficulty of using the current sign. So I feel that our proposal is reasonable, that the sign will not be obtrusive, and it's been said multiple times, it will not be flashing. I think when a lot of people hear about a sign like that, they think it will flash. Another thing I was told, because Diane inquired about a stand-up sign, is that we don't have the setback to allow us to put a stand-up sign where it would work. That's why we have it on the building. So using modern technology to save time and help ourselves develop an effective communication device for the school community and the wider community makes sense to me. Obviously, our 1970s policies are far outdated 50 years later, and I feel it's time to move on. So I urge the commissioners to consider and approve the Marquee as recommended by Trevor in her staff report. Thank you.
You're on mute,
Richard, I think you're muted.
I apologize. Thank you, Jan. And I think I saw your hand go back up. Thank you. All right. Thanks for reminding me. Yes, any other members of the public who would like to speak? I am not seeing anyone. Yes, Bryce Kenny.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, and good evening to everyone. You know, there's an old saying, I think it's from the Middle East, that once the camel gets his nose underneath the tent, he's going to come inside the tent. And I'm a little concerned that this might be the camel getting his nose under the tent here in Trinidad. And I have to respectfully disagree with the staff's analysis of whether the existing ordinance would allow a sign like this. I think when they use the term indirectly lighted, back in the day, they were distinguishing from neon signs, which are internally lighted. Those were the only two kinds they had back in those days. And I think the electronic signs are much more similar to a neon sign than an indirectly lighted sign. An example is over there at Murphy's Market, right close to the street. There's a regular sign with lights on it at night that shine up and illuminate it indirectly. And so I think that's an example of an indirectly lighted sign. It's good to know that the school's not looking for a flashing type of sign, which would be very distracting to people driving by the crosswalk, but I don't think that completely takes care of the issues. I actually agreed quite a bit with a lot of Kim Tay's written comments. And it's not necessarily so much about the brightness of the sign, but it's a whole new kind of sign that we would be introducing here in Trinidad. And I think it wouldn't be long before the other commercial businesses wanted to have electronic signs also, and they would be using the conditional use permit and variance process that is at their disposal. Trinidad is really still much more like a village, even though technically it is a city. And the examples of where we have these signs already are all much bigger cities in Eureka and Arcata. And so that's something to really think about carefully here. We all get more than enough screen time already between our computers, our phones, and our TV sets. And I don't think we need any more screen time when we're out in public. And I support the school very much. Both my kids graduated from the school. But I think a better remedy to the problem is, I would be fine with the cherry tree going away. It's a non-native tree that has outgrown its usefulness, could be easily replaced with an attractive azalea or some native species for some more greenery. And then just moving the sign and maybe.
That's time. That's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you get the gist.
Thank you, Bryce. Any other public comment? Let's see, I saw John and then I saw Sherry. So John Adams.
Yeah, I just like to say, I don't think there's a problem with the tree. I think the problem is just more with the inconvenience of changing the sign. That's the main issue here. So there's not really a good alternative to that. To the digital sign.
Thank you, John. Sherry Provost.
Good evening, and thank you for the presentation. I have grandchildren that currently go to the school, and I do count on that old sign to tell me when the book fair is happening or to tell me when there's a fundraiser, because I don't always get the notices from my grandchildren when these important events are happening. So it is a really good way of communicating to our community and to our families. I do want to suggest to the Planning Commission that you think about the policy. You might be putting the cart before the horse. And so I think you might want to develop the policy first that can give guidelines so that we don't have the camel's nose going under the tent, as Bryce was saying, and that we do have some guidelines set up ahead of time so that we're not dealing with these, continuous signages that we want to take away from the ambience of Trinidad. Just personally, I think it would be an okay sign to consider if done tastefully and listening to the comments from your community. And I think that if you have continuous feedback from your community members, that we could probably work on it so that it is something that gives us information while still being safe and not take away from the beauty of our small community. And I also want to agree that the tree probably should come down. That's one of the things that I hope the parent committee thinks about. I have to stop there, right there at that crosswalk all the time, letting kids go by. And that tree is in the way, even seeing kids crossing there. So I think that there's some other things that we can do to open up the visualization of that crosswalk. Thank you for allowing me say a few words.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I saw your hand, Aaron.
Yeah, it is from the public. I just got a text from Dorothy Cox. She's the 707-499 number. Anton, is there a way you can unmute her? She's struggling to do that from her phone. She's ready to speak. Dorothy, it looks like you're unmuted now.
I think that did it. Thank you all very much. I sent letters in. Can you hear me? First of all, I should know that.
Yes.
Am I there?
Yes. You're here.
Thank you all so much. I sent my letter in today, and I sent a couple of pictures I hope you all got. I worked at Dallas Prairie School and Morris School for over 20 years, and when we remodeled and put our new marquees up in front, they were just what the schools needed for the information for the parents, for the community. Dow's is in a Dow's is in a rural area, Morris is in a residential. A sign as you're proposing tonight, although that one's been there forever. My kids also graduated from that school, and my husband graduated from that school, for crying out loud. But the way that people have to look at that sign, you've all said even the tree is not it's not in a good spot, and even taking the tree down, people still have to maneuver on a very busy street, a narrowing area. Yes, they are still doing it right now, and they would have to continue to do that. But I think an alternative, and I think it's a good alternative from my perspective, is a marquee type at a level like Dow's and Morris have. And I don't understand the setback thing, the electrical, but I would think it would be worth looking into putting something like that as you come in around the bend, so people see it before they actually get to the school. You'd still have the information being able to be out to the public. You still, those little letters go on real easy. My custodians did it all the time. I really would like to suggest to the Planning Commission that be an alternative they look into with the school and with some of the public that, are going to be affected by this. I'm directly across the street. I can tell you that lit up thing is going to, I can see that wall from my back porch from my hot tub. So that's not something I want, to have that glare, and maybe it's not going to be as bad as I think it would be. But I really would encourage you to think about the other alternative, and maybe the commission would work on it with you for a variance to put something like that by the walkway of the school, which is a good spot for it to be where people come and go, right at the walkway that goes in and out of the school. I don't know what else I can add. I wrote everything I thought about in my letter, and I hope you all took the time to read it. Thanks for your time tonight. And young man, you did a really good job speaking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dorothy. Any other comments from the public? I want to give everybody an opportunity. I don't see anyone else. So having not seen anyone else, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any further discussion that the commissioners have or would like to make any comments? Okay, Diane.
Okay, I'm pretty concerned about where the sign would be, and that it's a different kind of a sign. It's not a marquee. There are 4 yellow signs at the crosswalk. There is a 15-mile-an-hour sign before you round the corner to the school. There's lots of traffic coming up from, the harbor, or coming into town, or going to the beachcomber, or going to the school, or going to the town hall, or going to the eatery or the gallery. It's a busy street. I've lived here 46 years. I'm on the street 5 times a week. I see the traffic. I've even tried to slow cars down when I'm out in front of the town hall. So I am pretty concerned about cars, about people, especially about students. And it's a very busy area. Having a sign that you have to turn your head to look at is a distraction. I mean, even the marquee now is a distraction, but it hasn't been changed in, 2 years. So I know they need something. I think, the sign that they're proposing could be not bright, and I think that would be okay, but I don't know. I just don't want it to be on all day. I have gotten community comment, and I'm concerned about that. Even though it's going to be computerized, I just think there's so much going on right there right now. And I would suggest a marquee, some kind of stand-up marquee. And I guess Jan told us, Jan West, that it couldn't be right there, but maybe it could be lower in the same spot right above Trinidad Elementary School. And the whole thing about it, the maintenance thing is, and they can't change it. I've changed the marquee at Alice Burney when I worked there at that school. So the whole deal is, do we want volunteers to change a marquee, or can we put this as a paid position so that somebody at the school goes out and they put up all the activities for January? They put 119, 125, 129, and it's got, school starting, minimum day. It's got, the Trinidad Clam Beach run. It's got the spaghetti feed. And you do it by month on the marquee, and then somebody changes it every month. And I get it about the letters, because when you have those marquees, the letters run out. You don't have enough letters. But I see it as a safety issue, because it's already there for the month and it needs to be changed every month. And if you paid somebody to do that, it might be $300 to $500 for a year. I'm just really concerned about the traffic and how busy it is there. That's the busiest street in the town. And I don't know, when my kids went to Trinidad school, I had 2 boys, we did K-8, there were 375 kids. And now there's 200. And the parents are very, very good, very concerned. They're in and out, but there are also people in and out, going to the beachcomber. Maybe they're going to the art place. Maybe they're going to a basketball game in the future. Maybe the Lions Club breakfast will be back. It just seems like it's going to be a distraction. Even though it will have pertinent information, I'm not sure that having it on the wall lit up is what we want. I know there's a couple people in town or a couple of letters that suggested, an alternate place. And I don't know if the corner is the best place, but I'm not sure that one walkway, and they have also those new sidewalks that have the planters that come out. So not only do you have the 4 planters coming out on both sides, 4 signs, the yellow stripes, and then activity. It seems like we need to kind of revisit this with the school, with All Points, and with the commissioners, and see if we can find some way so that the Trinidad school can get their message out to the parents and the community. I mean, I count on it. I want to know when the Ocean Week dinner is, and when the spaghetti feed is, and when the fundraisers are, and the drive-through dinners or basketball games. And I've been involved in the school and in schools for 45 years, so I know how much activity there is in a school, and that it's important that the information gets out. And, if it's not a newsletter to the parents and the grandparents, then it should be on a marquee or a sign of some sort. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Comments from other commissioners? Aaron?
Yeah. First, Elise and John, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. It answered a lot of questions I had. My daughter goes to Trinidad Elementary and is absolutely blowing up my phone and is in favor of this project. So I don't know if that's a necessary disclosure or not, but it's another student opinion. the question of digital versus manual at ground level, I thank you for talking about the setback issue. One of the concerns I had was, what does this communicate and how is it different from what's not done now? And John spoke to that as far as reaching other members, because I get the emails and I get the other things that the school sends out. I think I'm not quite ready personally tonight. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm a very data-driven person, and I like to see things for myself. And now, after speaking with Jeff and hearing that we have the option of potentially being able to do a mock-up, if assuming, of course, the Rancheria would be amenable to that, and to go there and see, for me, that would very much help me understand the concern, because I have great concerns about light pollution. Where I used to live, when the fog would come in, I could see the lights off the Budweiser plant, and I was miles away from it. Obviously that's a huge sign and very different type. But I want to make sure that those things get looked into. So, I'd like to propose, I guess I'm leaning towards, a continuance, I guess, and get some more information. And I have several thoughts on that, but that's kind of where I am right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Tom?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. That was very good. And I am also kind of leaning along with Aaron. But I wanted to point out that I think we have an opportunity of making a sign that's going to look good 50 years from now. It could be a real classy sign somewhere that just is easy to change out. And it's like a real classy sign. So that's what I'd like to see happen. And if it happens digitally, then we still those same guidelines and making it look. I did hear a neighbor say that she could see it from her. I don't like to hear that, I like to be neighborly. So anyway, and if we could slow down traffic somehow and make people more focused, that's what I'm concerned about. So, but thank you very much for the presentation, and look forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I have just a couple of comments, and yes, and thank you very much, John and Elise, for the presentation. I mean, you've answered a lot of questions, and what I appreciate is the passion of the students and the community about the school, and about trying to make it better. And obviously, this is something that is a little controversial, as you can see, but it's still very important that we understand it and come to some sort of conclusion. But I had my main question, aside from many of the other questions that have been addressed tonight, is to you, Trevor. It kind of goes to Bryce's comment about the camel, and I am a little concerned that our ordinances and regulations regarding lighting are horrible. I mean, we all agree to that, but it is very, very difficult to understand whether or not we could even approve this sign based on the current requirements. For example, when we talk about, and everybody goes back to this issue of direct versus indirect lighting, to me, the key word in that particular ordinance is maybe indirect, which would imply that somehow or another direct lighting would be permissible. And I don't think there would be much of an argument to say that this particular type of sign, this sign design, is direct lighted. So, and we're not going to answer that tonight. I realize that. But we have some really not very good data to go on in terms of our ordinances. The other thing that's been brought up, and I don't know that I have an answer for it either, is the issue of proliferation. Back to the camel, and it's not clear that, as you had somewhat proposed, tentatively proposed, maybe we carve out some sort of waiver for this particular sign. I don't know if we can do that, because I am a little bit concerned that that there is a proliferation issue here, recognizing that we are a very small community, and I imagine that we're not going to see signs every 10 feet along Trinity or Main Street, but there are certainly half a dozen places in town that I would see, or I do see, that might consider a sign such as what's being proposed here. So I don't know if we can come up with either the regulatory policies at this point that could make this sign, from my perspective, be legal, or if there's any way that we can limit future proliferation. I just don't know. And I think someone had mentioned maybe we need to have a little opinion from the city attorney. I don't know if that's even makes any sense, but I'm just throwing it out there. So having said all of that, I'm kind of in the same camp that Aaron is in the sense that I think there's still insufficient information for me to make a decision. And I just jotted down a couple of things that I thought would be very useful for me and perhaps others. But I thought that the idea of a mock-up, if there's some way that we could work with the Rancheria on that, I think that would be very good. I personally think that sign is almost the same size as the 8x4 that's being proposed here. I might be wrong, but I've only been by it about 20 times. So, but I think that would be really good if we could work that out. I liked the idea also of having an adaptive management or ops plan. And I realize that I'm adding to somebody's job jar, and I don't necessarily do that without the thought that, that's going to take some time. But I think it might be very useful, and perhaps for the public as well, if we could see specifically times, intensities, messages, those kinds of things that you could put into an operations plan so that people understand when the sign is going to be showing what information and when. The other thing is, and we've kind of kicked around a lot of alternative locations for the sign. I wonder if it might be useful to look at lowering the sign. In other words, we're looking at putting the sign basically in parallel with the existing sign, but would it make some difference? Is there some option of lowering it a little bit? That would help, I would think, that for issues with some of the public and seeing the sign from their back door. I don't know. But I just feel I got a lot of questions right now. And about the only thing I can say is makes any sense right now for me is to remove the tree. So that blocks a lot of stuff right there. I was down there today. But those are my thoughts right now. There might be a couple of other things, but I think I'd like to noodle on this one more time and get a feel for some of these issues that we've raised, and perhaps get a little bit more information from, for example, on the ops plan, and perhaps look at this and also give the public an opportunity to kind of absorb what's been presented tonight. I think it would be very useful if the school's presentation could be made available more publicly. Maybe we could put it on the website. And I think it would give people an opportunity to see exactly what the school is proposing. There's no doubt that we all support the school. And there's no doubt whatsoever that I know that the school will be responsive to community input and is very sensitive to public concerns. But this is a little bit of a giant leap, or at least a small step for many people. And so I think we need to kind of just take some time and work through it and have a little bit more discussion on it at this point. With that, I'll close my comments. And Aaron. Another
I
comment.
just had a question for Trevor that popped into my head based off something you said earlier. Normally, a public building would be exempt from our regulations, and this is only because it's within the CDP area. As an example, the library, are they currently in or out? Would they be subject to this, or would they be free reign to do whatever they wanted?
Good
I'm not saying they
question.
have a desire to, but I'm just as an example.
Yeah, so that is not located on state property. So even though it's a public building, it's also a local public entity. So that would be probably subject anyway. But it's on the property is owned by the land trust, and so
Okay,
and
got it.
pretty much all of Trinidad is in the coastal zone. So
Okay.
Trinidad's LCP and coastal development requirements apply throughout the city. And I think, Richard brought up some good points, and I could address them partially tonight, but I think, if it sounds like you would like to continue the meeting, I could provide some additional information. I do think, yes, the language about indirectly lit is permissive language as opposed to prohibitive, which changes how it's interpreted to some degree, because it doesn't prohibit directly lit signs either. And I think there's definitely some definite solid ways that you could word your findings so that this does not set precedents for commercial uses for digital signs, at least until we get our regulations updated. I do know, if you're interested, the city of Eureka did just submit some digital sign regulations to the Coastal Commission for certification. So, and I'm going to dig that up. I haven't had time, but that means that's been approved locally at the city of Eureka. That might be something to look at as an example for our discussion about updating our regulations. But I think that Sherry made a good point about cart before the horse, but I do think in looking at our guidelines that we have so far, it would permit a sign like this. And so we wouldn't be prejudicing ourselves in approving this. And while we're still working on our regulations, but those are all, these are all good issues. And I agree that it would be good to digest some of these things, this information, gather some additional information, and I think that probably the school, I think clearly they want to be part, they are part of the community, and so want to be responsive. And so, I think that's the best thing for everybody at this point.
Thank you for those comments. Diane.
So I'm ready to make a motion. Okay, I'd make a motion to delay action and gather more information from all points, from the rancheria, from the school, digest the community information. And then as we go through this design element, we have signs to talk about tonight, and we can look at that and have Trevor explain some of that to us and maybe get a better handle on what kind of sign and where it should go. So I just think we need to delay the action and get more information.
Just a point of order real fast. Trevor, if we were to continue this to the next meeting, does that require a motion?
Yes, I think you should make a motion.
Okay.
And yes, I do. I would suggest that you continue it to date specific. Then it wouldn't have to be renoticed. This was, quite a bit of notices went out. And so if you want to continue it just to the February meeting, if you think you need more time, I know Diane said she wouldn't be here in March, but we could continue it till February for now and see what we have by then. But yeah, I would suggest continuing it to a specific meeting.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So we have a motion. Do I hear a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Diane?
So let's put in the motion to delay discussion and information, and delay the action so we can get more information and discussion and bring it to the February meeting.
Thank you.
So Anton can maybe get that going or reread it to us.
It would be, I would suggest it be continued would be the word to use, and continue
Thank
it to the February meeting in order to be able to get more information and input.
Sounds good.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Hey, Richard, I apologize. I need to run out the door for a call. I'll return to the meeting when I can. And Trevor, I have a list of 5 or 6 things I'll get to you that I'd like to see try and address before the next meeting. Maybe we can share it with the applicant as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you very much, Ms. Nichols and John.
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
I hope that you can understand and appreciate our a little bit of delay here, but I think in the long run, it helps build a little bit more of a knowledge base that helps people really decide what can and should be done. And I really appreciate your participation and everything that you've provided to us tonight. And we'll do our best to focus and try to get a decision here in the very near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, if you guys need, I'll probably be the best resource for coordinating with the casino and or other signs around and providing information on illumination, stuff like that. So
thank you.
Yeah, you can just reach out to me through Ms. Nichols or off my website or something.
Great.
Bye.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you all that participated in the conversation. Okay. We are at 8:01. Do we want to take a 5-minute break before we continue? I see thumbs up. By the way, anybody that wants to participate in the community design criteria, a lot of this is a lot has to do with signs. So you're welcome to hang around and hear what we are going to be discussing next. But we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 8:06 and continue with the next agenda item. Thanks.
You all have a nice night.
Thank you. You too.
I will on that. Okay. I don't think you should do this. You can't do it 4 days a week. Okay, 8:07. See if we can get everybody back here. There's Tom, Trevor, Aaron's gone, Diane. Oh, okay. Diane, are you there? We need Diane for a quorum.
It is kind of ironic that we're doing this next after the sign.
That's all I could think about when I was reviewing all this information.
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't understand why some people have hung around, but all such good stuff. So Trevor, I've been meaning to ask you where you went on your vacation this year. You always go to some exotic location, and I haven't had a chance to ask you.
I can't believe how we lucked out on our timing. We went to Europe. We started in Munich, went through Salzburg, Venice, and flew out of Zurich. So covered quite a bit of ground, and our timing couldn't have been better in terms of COVID. We had our vaccination cards, and we had to get tested to get on the airplane a couple of times, but yeah, no issues. We didn't even get checked at border crossings at all. So
oh, great.
Yeah.
Very good.
and being able to go to Venice when it wasn't crowded, I think was really
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have a quorum now. Let's re-begin here. Next item on our agenda is the general plan update, the community design element, discussion of the draft community design element of the Trinidad general plan. So I'll turn it over to you, Trevor.
Yeah, not a lot to report. This is a continued discussion. I updated the element based on last month's discussion, just continuing to try and consolidate a few of those policies we talked about, like 3.1 and 4.4, the sign one. I have a couple of comments and questions. I think, ironically, it's the sign one that I think probably needs the most work, that I have the most questions on. Again, I think the guidelines are fairly specific in that, in there. That's not necessarily a problem, but just recognizing, our regulations are going to be based on them, and they are a little bit harder to change in the general plan than some other places. So we don't want to hem ourselves in, knowing that this might be another 50 years that it's going for. But I hope once we have a new LCP that we will update it regularly as opposed to what we've got now. But yeah, so let's see. I had a few specific notes and questions in the policies, or sometimes they're comments. Why I crossed something out or why I did something. So yeah, I think with the signs, I think a couple of my primary questions were, do you want to include anything about temporary signs, the flags and sandwich boards and things like that? We had talked about pole signs not being desirable. I realized the eatery has a big pole sign. That's one example. It does seem like the monument signs, like what Chevron has for its price signs, could actually potentially block views more than a pole sign. So they have their advantages and disadvantages. So just something to think about. So I kind of made that a little bit more general, to not necessarily prefer pole signs, but actually wall-mounted signs. In researching other regulations, some other kinds of signs that came up were, projecting. So, off of a wall. So not flush mounted on the wall, but projecting off the wall, perpendicular. Hanging signs, so like hanging from an awning over a sidewalk, something like that. Window signs are some others that you might want to think about. And then I wanted, I was thinking about, billboards and electronic billboards and, the Bear River Casino sign is one that comes to mind that's obviously not appropriate to Trinidad. So I wanted to make sure that's covered. So I think that's in F. So yeah, so I am happy to take any more comments, suggestions, questions. As we continue to work on this.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the staff report. Let's see, maybe the easiest way to do this is if each commissioner would like to make some general comments, and then Trevor, what we haven't hit for some of your questions, we can come back and have a discussion about those, if that makes sense to you. So Diane or Tom, do you have any comments throughout it? And then we can come back and talk about specifics. Okay, I have a couple.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got something real quick.
Go ahead.
The only thing that kind of jumps out at me is if maybe community characteristic policies, if there could be something saying a nautical themes, you know, for houses, or maybe that should be in a different spot. But I kind of like the rope effect, or even the round, you know, wave theme, if that would be appropriate.
I think that would be an appropriate location for that. I would suggest that, you know, design not be necessarily limited to that, but, you know, maybe as encouraged or preferred or something like that.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Diane?
Page 3, where we were just okay, so CD 1.3A. Okay. So limit the size and bulk of structures to maintain Trinidad's town character, minimize view blockage, and provide adequate room for septic and open spaces between structures. The scale, bulk, orientation, architectural character of the structure and related improvements shall be compatible with the coastal character of the community and the neighborhoods. That's what I want to switch up or add to it, and the neighborhoods. Because they're different neighborhoods.
Okay, you're looking at adding that to the last sentence, the second sentence, I mean?
In A of CD 1.3, yes.
Okay, okay.
All right, and then on page 4, CD 2.3, prohibits structures, including fences, wall signs, and landscaping from significantly blocking views of the harbor, Little Trinidad Head, the Pacific Ocean, rocky coastline, or islands from key viewing points within residential and commercial structures. Okay, I didn't see residential, so I think that's okay, Trevor. I just wanted to add more, so we got residential in there also. Okay, CD 2.5. Landscaping and vegetation shall be maintained such that it does not cause unreasonable view obstruction in accordance with the policies and regulations of the city. Okay, so here I go. Do we write something to put in tree height and bushes height? We already have fences.
I mean, we do have a hedge height currently is regulated like fences. I think at the last meeting we talked a little bit, you know, even a 6-foot fence could block views. You know, tree height though, I think I would recommend against that, because I mean, if take for the old cypresses on is it the Huff property over there by behind the smoke, Katie's smokehouse over there. Those big, huge cypresses, those were, 100 feet tall, but they didn't, you could see under them. They didn't block views. So I'm not sure height, and some trees do better with pruning, sort of windowing and thinning. Some trees add to the aesthetics of a coastal view shed. So, and some trees don't do well with, just trimming them down to a height. I mean, if you look at the old Fulkerson trees, those are kind of a big mess now because they did used to be topped. And it's not a species that does well with topping. So I would recommend against a set height limit for trees, but it's certainly open for discussion.
I guess my comment on that is that the program there says develop a vegetation management plan or program for bluffside vegetation maintenance consistent with protection, ESAs and cultural resources. I think we could probably amend that a little bit to say that we would look at tree height and compare it to the species of the tree and come up with recommended ways in which to prune for optimal viewing or something like that. I mean, we've already going to do a program there, and you could add that to the management plan to address just the things you're talking about. Some trees don't do well with topping, right? No question about it. But the cypress, obviously, you see under it for the most part, I think.
So what is EHSAS, Trevor?
That is environmentally sensitive habitat areas.
Okay. So
environment, and it's the S and the H are switched.
Okay, so I guess okay, so CD 2.3 got into residential landscaping, right?
Yes.
So maybe we'll put some kind of wording in there. Because the tree out my west window to the south, one house away, is taller than skyscrapers, and some of them in Eureka. Okay, so my last comment is in signs, okay? So 3.2. New development shall be sited and designed to minimize impacts on views from trails, beaches, the oceans, and community neighborhoods or neighborhoods. Because the one we talked about tonight was a neighborhood, the deck. It's in a neighborhood. So I wanted to add that.
I think so. This policy is geared towards environmental impacts. And so it's not really, so I think the neighborhood impacts are covered under the community character policies. That's the intent anyway.
Okay, and then in sign policies on the bottom of page 5, CD 4.1, limit the overall proliferation of signage and minimize the signs of advertising, business, ID, and directional signs to ensure scenic views are not, scenic views and traffic are not obstructed. Because traffic, we talked about it tonight with the school sign. That's, you're in traffic and you're sidetracked by a sign. Okay, I actually have something else on page 6. I took a lot of notes this session. So page 6, CD 4.4. And this is the one that we might want to talk about. The following criteria shall apply to all signs. So in D, flush-mounted wall signs are the preferred type, no more than one freestanding sign may be allowed per business street frontage, and freestanding signs shall be limited in size and height. So wouldn't that be part of the school, that one sign there? I mean, that one criteria. So we don't get too many signs on Main Street that distracts the traffic.
I think traffic issues would be good to cover. I think what that one would actually encourage what the school is proposing, because it's a flush mounted wall sign as opposed
okay.
to
Okay, I just knew it had to do with the school, and I wanted to make sure there weren't a whole bunch of them, because that's such, a busy street. Okay, so that's it. All right, let's see now. Okay, so now I'm on 7, page 7. CD 6.2, landscaping and vegetation shall be maintained such that it does not cause unreasonable view obstruction in accordance with the policies and regulations of the city, including the views and vegetation ordinance. So in that ordinance, I wanted to look at the heights. So when we go, after we get the design element finished and we're writing, or looking at the ordinances, I wanted to look at heights again. And then the last comment was the one you crossed out. Ensure that all public landscaping is adequately maintained. So my idea was to get some of the TOT funds from the tourists and seasonably we could get maintenance, pay for a maintenance person to check seasonably the maintaining landscaping in neighborhoods. And maybe they do it on the trails. So I'm thinking they could winter, spring, summer, fall, just check it. And then, it's going to be more money. So we may need to hire somebody to do that if Kyle can't do that. And I thought, if we're going to get the TOT funds, get more of it, that could be where we get the money. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, I think there has to be a distinction here between public and private landscaping. Got to make sure that we're dealing with the public landscaping. And again, I go back to a management plan would help resolve some of those discrepancies if there are any that come up. So good points taken. Okay. I'll go real fast, Trevor, and then we can kind of focus in on a couple of things. Let's see, on page 3, CD 1.3 C, the last sentence there says necessary public safety facilities shall conform to the extent feasible. I think I understand what we were trying to say is that maybe their visual appearance cannot be quite the same as the surrounding areas. Is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we talked about, you know, the first part of it, except for necessary public safety facilities, and what did that mean? And, you know, something like a tsunami siren or a communication, you know, something that's on a roof. So this is about roof lines. And so sometimes some of those public facilities might need to be higher than that. And so previously it just made a blanket exception for them. And so I changed it and added it to the end to say it will conform to the extent feasible, but that may not always be feasible.
Thank you. Now I remember I remember the conversation now. Yeah. Real fast on page 5, your comment down at the bottom of the page says, should this be under signs or views? It overlaps with 1.3G. And when I go back and look at 1.3G, that has to do with parking lots, storage areas, and associated facilities. Is that really the reference that you meant?
No, that note's been in there for a couple of meetings, so probably that reference has changed. I can figure out what that should be referring to.
Okay.
But I think based on Diane's comment, I'm going to broaden a 4.1 a little bit, so it's not just scenic views, but maybe also adding something, you know, about community character as well as, you know, public safety. And so then it wouldn't be so much of a view issue.
Okay. Next comment real fast is you mentioned billboards are not allowed on the next page. And I agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. I just wonder if we should define what that means.
I think we do. Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that with our discussion tonight because a lot of people were calling the school sign a billboard, and so definitely we are you know, maintaining a glossary that we are adding to as we go through the general plan. So yes, I think we do need some definitions of these types of signs, and you know, what is it? Because I think digital signs, as people brought up, are going to be proposed in the future. And, you know, I think they can be low key and they can be super obnoxious. So, you know, being able to differentiate exactly what that means. I'm going to pull up the City of Eureka's new regulations and see what they're doing. They might have some good ideas.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Those are just kind of my general comments. I think your comments on signs all kind of make a lot of sense. And I guess I don't quite see that monument signs, well, you've mentioned that you think that they could block views. And I guess I get that from a pedestrian or from a driving standpoint, but it just seems that it's so much aesthetically better to have monument signs as opposed to pole signs. And I realize that probably puts a huge number of signs in town out of compliance. But we've talked about the grandfathering in of certain signs, and if there's any change to the you know, the message on the sign, if you will, that the sign then has to change. And as long as I think if that's clearly articulated to the owner of the sign, that probably will be okay in the future. But I guess my general comment is the monuments make more sense to me. And I just think it's more in line with what I see the rest of the world is doing. So, but
yeah, and I think when I made that comment, I was thinking about like the Chevron price sign, because that's probably the first time we really started talking about monument signs versus pole signs with that whole issue. And but really, you know, like the Presbyterian Church that we just looked at. that sign that just changed, that's a monument sign. And that's the kind of low key sign that I think people probably have in mind in terms of a monument sign.
You call that a monument sign? I would have called that a pole sign.
Oh, because it's on 2 feet.
Yeah.
Well, see, here's where we need some definitions.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Yeah. And from what you've just said, yes, I could see if someone defined that as a monument sign, yes, they could say that that's blocking a view. I for whatever reason, call it a pole sign.
Okay.
But yeah, definitions are, I think, probably the best thing that we could do to keep ourselves out of trouble. Okay. So those are general comments. Is there anything you want to go back and look at in more detail, Trevor?
Let me take a quick look to see if I have any. I guess 1.3A, I combined those, just trying to combine some, but I didn't shorten anything more. I don't know if you have any feelings about whether those should be left separate or stay combined.
Diane, yeah, go ahead.
So the signs that are in the shopping center, how are they regulated, Trevor?
So we do have, the city does have sign regulations, and there are some, limits on how high they can be. There are some limits on the total amount of square footage based on street frontage. Most of those signs, have been in existence before my time. We did permit the, sort of the one at the entrance that has all the businesses on it. We did permit that in the last 5 years or so.
So what about the Forbes sign in back of the Lighthouse Grill? Did you permit that?
No, that was a pre-existing sign. I think we did, at the last meeting, we talked about digging up, I think John Roberts, the last building inspector before Ross, I think he did an inventory of signs. To document which ones are in compliance and which ones are out. It would be kind of interesting to dig that up.
Well, I think so, because one business has 4 advertisements in the shopping center. So
are you saying 4 separate signs or?
Yes. Yeah, 2 on the building, 1 in another building, and 1 on the main building, on the main signage. So it's a bit much.
So as I understand it, well, maybe I don't understand it. I know we limit the number of on-site signs and the size of on-site signs, and we do the same thing, I think, for off-site as well, right, Trevor?
Yes, off-site signs are mostly prohibited, except in special circumstances.
So I don't know what you're referring to, Diane. You want to be more specific?
Forbes real estate.
Okay.
Yeah, just take a look at the shopping center. I noticed it today because I purchased my dinner at Lighthouse Grill, and I thought, wow, I haven't seen this, because I've looked at the landscape there. I like the landscape in the back. And, a lot of transients or homeless will be on that corner, and I use that corner a lot to get in and out of town or my where I'm going. So I was just curious, because we've been talking about the school sign, and So I'm going to go back and look at all those signs again because we don't want them to get out of hand.
Of course not.
So is one, I know the one that's on Main Street on poles, I believe I've seen a file for that one. So it did go through the design review process, if I recall, but I know there's some controversy about that sign.
It's tall. It's tall.
Yeah.
And
Are
it's
any
tall,
of
it's on a
the,
pole.
are any of the other ones new signs?
No, they're just on the facade of the building.
Okay.
Okay. And then I need to check the sign, the one when you come into town, not the main one at the shopping center. That one's done nicely. And then Tom talked about the light, you know, at night shining up on the names, you know, because there are people that come in at night to get the groceries or the gas, you know. But if we're talking about signs, we don't want to get too many. And then I noticed all through the county now, and I've only been as far as Eureka, it's the walk, or is it, I don't know, it's the yellow signs, and I don't know if they say drive or walk, I can't remember. Look and walk and look, or look and drive, I don't know. It's the yellow signs. There's one right by Eli's office, and then there's another one, I think, towards the harbor.
Are these traffic safety signs?
Yeah, they're great. They're great.
Okay.
They're light. I mean, they're little, and they're probably, you know, 2 feet high, and maybe 2 by 3, and they're yellow and black.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I'm confused as to what the issue is with them.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, they're new signs in town, and I know they're throughout the county. They talked about it somewhere, maybe the newspaper, or maybe it was, you know, the news. So people would be alert to that, and it has a good message, but it's getting late and my brain's not remembering the message.
So the whole issue of traffic safety or pedestrian safety or safety in general, how do we handle those kinds of signs, Trevor?
Currently, those kind of signs are exempt from design review. And so, you know, those are things that, like the stop signs that went up at the end of Trinity, that's a city council decision, that's city right of way, and they make those decisions.
Okay, that's what I assumed. Yes. Okay, what else do we need to, Tom, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment. I was thinking about the pole sign versus the memorial sign, and the memorial or the monument sign, if it has a stone or decorative base, maybe that could be a decorative base, could be the designation. And
I see. In terms of discriminating between the two.
Yeah, to be able to, to tell them apart.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay, what else can we go through? It is late, I realize that, and I'm going brain dead too. So what else can we go with you, Trevor?
Yeah, thanks. Let's see. Let me just, I think, I guess this note's been on here. And I'm not sure we have a lot of leeway. Coastal Commission, you know, based on comments in the conservation element, you know, they really don't want to cut into slopes. So page 5, you know, we've got this idea of, you know, minimizing grading and changing contours. But I know in Trinidad, there's been at times, you know, a preference to say, well, you can have this house, but you have to dig it into the hillside to make it lower. And so I'm wondering, do we want to just get away from that? Do we want to address that? Do we want to say anything about that, pro or con?
I guess when I read your comment, yes, that's something that I know it's been there for a while. My thought was that I guess personally, I don't have any trouble with the way it's worded here, but I thought that at some place we should tie in the issues regarding stability and potential erosion problems, et cetera. So to me, if it looks like the design is feasible and it can be lowered and offers better views, and it's not impacting any other issues such as I said, slope stability, et cetera, then that probably could be okay. Welcome back, Aaron. I don't know whether that answers your question, but at least that's my comment on it.
No, I think that's a good idea. I think, and we've talked about the monument signs, pole signs. We're going to add some definitions. And I guess the outstanding question on signs is, do we want to include anything about like temporary movable signs, the flags, sandwich boards, things like that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see what I can come up with I'll try and steal some language from someone else.
I think the issue with sandwich board signs, et cetera, in my mind is, I know a lot of people use them for special activities like art night. And maybe there could be some ways in which exceptions that if the sign is up for less than X number of hours, that it's okay. Something to that effect. The other issue, though, what's very important is public safety. I've seen these signs that wind up on the sidewalk and people have actually tripped over them. So that's an issue. And believe it or not, even wind, environmental conditions in this area are really important too. So yeah, I think we do need to add something about temporary signs and flags. I think that's also an issue too.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just so I can get on the same page here under draft and plan CD4, I'm guessing. Okay,
yes.
Thanks.
I'd love to, could I throw one thing out?
Yes.
I'd love to see a job sign, a sign of something that's going to be done. I mean, that's, we don't want to step on that. I mean, if, like, I'd love to see a sign showing what's going to be done down at the harbor somewhere, and around town. If it's a job sign showing the public what's going to happen, I think that should be allowed, or we should at least specify that somehow. In fact, that should be encouraged.
It is out there. The stormwater sign is up, Tom.
It's a brief description, but the picture of what they're doing.
I know it's not a picture; it's an advertisement of who's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I just see it in the city where you can see what's going to be built, and that's how it should be, I think. Yeah, I'm big on poles, flagging, and signages of what's about to happen, if possible. So anyway, I just throwing that out that we don't want to like rule that out somehow.
Okay. No, fair enough.
That's a good point. And I think under the current regulations, they are allowed. And again, we do have to keep in mind, these are just general guidelines and we will have more specific regulations. But so for the general plan, it would be something like, minimize temporary signage except for, maybe list some, construction signs, temporary event signs, things like that. And then know that we're going to make it more specific in the regulations. And I think one last question, so 6.4, there was a comment about making sure public and private landscaping is kept separate. And so I'm wondering so I had added the public landscaping to that, and I'm wondering if you think those should be then two policies. I think the prohibit landscaping from encroaching into public right-of-ways, trails and easements applies to both public and private, but maybe the public landscaping maintenance is a separate idea and a separate policy maybe.
I kind of like the concept that they're together, because if we want them to do it, we need to do it too. It's kind of a two-way responsibility, the city maintaining ours and them, me maintaining my public, stuff that goes over the fence into the public right of way.
And Richard talked about have a city management plan for public and private landscaping. And then I went into that, having it checked seasonably.
Well, just for clarification, it was for public landscaping only, not private. But I understand what you're saying.
I thought you said two separate ones, but I don't know.
Yes, but there's little that we can do to regulate private landscaping, is my point.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying.
So I think that covers all my questions on the CD element at this point.
Okay.
I have one more. Did we talk about neon signs? Are they in there?
Not
CD 4.4, or is it G? I think it is now.
CD 4.
On page 6.
So yeah, and I believe that's an existing policy. Neon signs with distinctive designs are acceptable. So yeah, so they are covered.
Okay, where are they? I don't remember. I mean, I went through that a lot.
4.4G.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see it. Thank you.
Or maybe it's actually E. I guess the G is crossed out. It's actually an E.
The E, okay. And then I had a question on F video, and I apologize if that's already been discussed. What do we have a working definition of that, or what's the discussion been so far on that?
The discussion is we need definitions.
Okay, perfect. That's totally appropriate.
I think, like we talked about, there are going to be, more proposals for digital signs. They could probably be tastefully done, but we don't want, the Bear River Casino Highway 101 sign.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. At this point, I will open it up for public comment, if there's any public comment on this agenda item. We still, yes, Sherry. I think I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to find the right mute button thing. So mine, Trevor, might just be something, it might have been missed or something, but I was actually on CD 7.4. It's the next page 8. And it looks like you added new development shall respect the cultural heritage of Trinidad and shall be designed to minimize impacts to cultural and historical resources. But then I see CD 7.4 below that. So is the new language in red addition, or are you changing it to substitute the one that's below that?
No, so it was in addition, and I just forgot to update. The old 7.4 should now be 7.5.
Thank you. I was hoping that they would both be there. And my only other comment was other community design initiatives. The beautification efforts by neighborhoods and merchant groups, we want to support that. One thing I was thinking about is littering and making sure there's enough disposals around so that people can be able to use those. I know there is some by the bus station and things like that. But I was just thinking if we wanted to put anything about, be mindful about littering, as a beautification effort. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for the comment. Okay. So we are coming up on 9 o'clock. And Trevor, where do we need to go through these last two agenda items?
No, I don't think so. The permit exemptions and waivers, that is, it's an SB2 grant task. We did get an extension on that, so we do have a few more months to continue to work on that. And I think we're at a point, I think we're getting close to being at a point on that where, it probably needs to go to the Coastal Commission. And I'm also starting to realize that it's referring to so many other sections of the ordinance that they are kind of standalone exemptions, but then it starts to refer to other sections and we don't have those sections. So we might not be able to get, too much further on this, but yes, I think we could certainly put that off for another month. And after the fact permits, there's no rush on that one either.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Next item on the agenda, aside from the last two items, item 5 and item 6, which will delay. The next item are commissioners' reports. Do we have anything to report from the commissioners? Diane? Did we lose her again?
You're muted, Diane.
So the STR committee met on the 4th. And we talked about, STRs, and then pretty much talked about an annual report, which Dick Bruce will present at the Tuesday, January 25 joint committee with us and the city council and the STR. So we just went through what we've done for the year, and they're not sure they need to be meeting 4 times a year, and they feel real good about the STRs and about what they have done as a committee. And I think no complaints again. So I think you'll just hear it at the report at the joint meeting coming up, in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good reminder for everybody, the January 25th for our combined meeting with the Planning Commission, STR Committee, and City Council. Okay, staff report.
I don't think I have anything new to report. We got that grant application submitted for the LCP update. Becky and I are going to meet with the Coastal Commission staff person who's reviewing that on Friday. I will be, the city council put off the STR ordinance amendments to hear from the Coastal Commission or until February. So I'll be getting that ready to go back to the city council. I did hear from the Coastal Commission. It sounds like that could be processed as a minor amendment. So that's good news. They didn't have any real concerns that they brought up. I am working, I'm working on the writing up the parking study. I finally have a little bit of time to start to compile that data. because we do need to complete those SB2 tasks. I don't know if we're going to really, Coastal Commission is so short-staffed. I'm not sure we're going to get feedback on our ADU ordinance anytime soon. And I've started to work on some of the LEAP grant tasks, which are some similar ordinance amendments to the emergency shelter amendment that we did a couple of years ago. So they're fairly minor, adding definitions and those types of things as allowable uses, transitional housing, supportive housing, things like that. So you'll be seeing that. I'm going to get that to the Coastal Commission, then you'll be seeing that hopefully soon. So yeah, so we've got still a busy year ahead of us. The city council has been very happy with our work on the general plan, so I'm going to continue to get them updates as I can. Should be having some more figures coming out soon, so that's good. So yeah, lots of good progress.
Could I add?
Sure, Tom.
I saw a disaster preparedness thing coming out with all the cities. Have you seen that? Has anybody seen that?
I have not, but yeah, I think that's a periodic plan they do. There's the local hazard mitigation plan that they did a few years ago, but yeah, so is that something somebody's kicking off?
I'm going to look into it and I'll get back to you.
Great.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have reached the end of our agenda items. Oh, I'm sorry, one more, future agenda items, and I think we already know what they are. And next month, we'll be tackling again the Trinidad School sign issue again. And then in addition to the 3 items that we have put onto future agenda items and been there for some time, but we still need to look at those. Okay, any further comments or final comments, I should say, not further, final comments? Diane.
So let's try to get the siren. I think that should be up there. And I don't know, if we can talk to Shirley, or what do we do, Trevor, to get the tsunami siren up?
A good question.
I think it's relevant. Really, it's getting more relevant.
Yeah, well, I think we're just looking for an update. So I can reach out to Shirley and see if she's got anything to update.
Okay, and then one other thing, Trevor, I have my parking studies at home, so I'll take them to Anton.
Yes, please, because
Yeah,
I'm starting to
there's not
compile
a
the
bunch,
data.
but there's probably 6 of them there.
Oh, great. That's
And
wonderful.
they're dated. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Final comments? Going once, going twice, 3 times? All right. I think we're done. I want to thank everybody for hanging in there. It's been a long night, and I realized that we had a lot of areas to cover tonight, and I really appreciate the participation and support. So thank you very much.
And Richard,
See you
thank
later.
you. You did a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you and good night.